Old RAV4, new RAV4. The 2026 version of this Toyota is its first redesign since 2019, and it came with a lot of changes. Changes that made this significantly better in some ways, but potentially a little bit worse in a few others. We're here to find out what those updates are, and of course, most importantly, we're going to tell you if this new one is worth the extra cash. We're Edmunds, and we test hundreds of cars each year on the road and at our private track, so you get the most trusted reviews. If you want to know which car, truck, or SUV is the best, then stick with us. The new hybrid-only RAV4 starts at around 33 grand, but of course what you'll actually pay depends on dealers in your local area. That's why at Edmunds we've got the tools on our site that tell you what you should pay for this or any other new car. Either check out the links in the description or just scan the QR code. This XLE Premium with all-wheel drive is actually the trim that we would recommend for most people because it's going to give you the best mix of features and affordability. This example, it cost us around $37,500. That's right, I said cost us because we actually bought this thing to become a part of our 1-year road test fleet where we live with a vehicle for about a year and 20,000 miles to find out what it's like day to day. Our garage just wouldn't be complete without the best-selling car in America inside of it, and now it's time to look at some of the exterior changes. Toyota has installed horseshoe-shaped headlight elements and a body-colored perforated grille onto the new RAV4, and neither of those additions are a surprise because this is just a continuation of Toyota's latest design language, which we've already seen on vehicles like the Camry and the Prius. Now the old RAV4, its styling is starting to look a little bit dated, which is unsurprising since it's 7 years old. And for my taste, this old RAV4 always looked a bit too anonymous. The new one has some flair that it was missing. This video is brought to you by Bumper.com. Get an AI-powered summary of a vehicle history report that's simple and to the point. With just a VIN or license plate number, learn about a car's history quick. To learn more, visit Bumper.com/Edmunds. This new grille makes the new RAV4 seem bigger, but these two, they're actually pretty much identical in size. They've got the same wheelbase, the same ground clearance, and the old one, it is 1/10 of an inch shorter in length, which I know you could totally tell, right? But the biggest dimensional difference is gonna be the new one, 3/10 of an inch shorter, and that might not sound like a lot, but it does make it a touch more aerodynamic, and that should help you with fuel economy. Now, down the sides, there are going to be some similarities, same flared fender arches and a belt line that kind of rises up when it goes front to back. Around the back, the changes are more pronounced. You're getting these slim LED taillights now, joined together by this large trim piece with RAV4 now in very big font, just in case you forgot what you bought. Personally, I like the changes in the front more than the ones in the rear, but overall, it's definitely an upgrade in style for the RAV4. A new exterior is great, but for a vehicle like this, it's gonna matter a lot more what's changed on the inside. Any new vehicle has to get its screen game right, and the RAV4, it does just that. The new RAV4 doesn't just have new screens, it's also got a brand new infotainment system for Toyota, and it's one that we like quite a bit. Now here in the XLE Premium, you're actually getting the smaller of the two available screens in the RAV4, and this is as big as the upgraded screen in the old RAV4, so big gains there. But the problem with the old RAV4 wasn't necessarily screen size, it was what was powering it and the fact that it lacked processing juice. Both of those issues have definitely been solved in the new infotainment system. It's a lot snappier, you can tell it's definitely got more processing power, and the structure of the menus has also been simplified, much easier to get around. We also like the navigation system in this quite a bit. Its destinations are powered by Google, so you're always getting up-to-date information like ratings and phone numbers, all that good stuff. And backing it up, wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. This standard digital instrument cluster is also really nice. I like that you can use it to display a lot of different information, especially a map view that either reflects what you're seeing in Android Auto or Apple CarPlay or the native navigation. That's great because then you can see your directions here and use the screen for something else. And the RAV4 is also going to come standard with an integrated dash cam, a feature that's still pretty rare these days. Here in the old RAV4, the base screen, it is a few inches smaller, but what I don't like about it is that the housing is actually the same size. You have all this black space around it, and as we mentioned earlier, it doesn't quite have enough processing power. I think this infotainment system is fine. I think it holds up well. It's just that when you're scrolling around, you'll notice that it's not quite as snappy as the new one. It just needs a bit more juice. This old RAV4 is also going to have a partially digital instrument cluster, but it can't match the new one at all in terms of capability and the information that it can be customized to display. Now, if you're considering a previous generation RAV4, the model year is going to be very important because for 2023, it got a tech refresh. And if you go any older than that, believe it or not, this screen is going to get even smaller and you're going to get an even older infotainment system. And that is one that we really don't like. And if you go 2021 or older, you won't get any USB-C charging ports. So if you want a more modern experience and amenities like wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, 2023 or newer. But here in the older RAV4, what you are getting are knobs. Big chunky ones that are rubberized, that are easy to use even if you're wearing gloves during winter. This interior just has a plethora of physical controls and buttons that are all easy to reach and logically laid out. If you're looking for good interior design that's user-friendly, this is it. For a mid-grade trim, I think the materials are actually pretty good and everything also feels built to a pretty high standard. Now, for small item storage, you are getting a shelf in front of the passenger, which we always like, but the rest of it, it's just a bit average. This bin is just okay sized and the center bin is a little bit small. Now, these front seats, they feel relatively plush when you first sit in them, but after about 30 minutes or so, you notice that the bottom cushion, it's a bit too firm, and more importantly, it's too short. So especially if you're taller, they're going to lack thigh support, and on longer drives, they're not going to be all that comfortable. But the biggest problem we have with these seats is that the seat heaters, they are weak and they take way too long to heat up. One other thing worth mentioning is the seating position is pretty high, and that could be good for a lot of buyers, and that's the reason that they consider crossovers and SUVs to begin with, to feel like you're sitting higher up so you have a nice commanding view of the road. But a few of the taller drivers on our staff did note that in this older RAV4, they were wishing for more headroom. In the new RAV4, small item storage is where it really shines. You're getting that shelf in front of the passenger, but this center console is just so much more thoughtfully designed. The wireless charging pad is here. You're not even getting one of those in the old RAV4 that we had. You get another bin down here, decently sized cup holders, but this center bin is great because the lid comes off completely, it flips over, and you get a plastic surface here that you can eat on without getting the upholstery dirty. You're also getting really big door pockets, and even where the door handles are, there's a nice little cubby here that's great for a wallet. Basically, all the stuff that lives in your pockets has a place to live here in the RAV4. Now, these front seats, just like in the old one, nothing to really write home about the same level of comfort, although we do have to say the heating and ventilation have definitely been upgraded on this new RAV4. Now, the control scheme, it has taken a step back to us because a lot of the climate controls, they now live in the screen. We prefer buttons generally, but at least you're getting a volume knob and buttons to control the temperature, so it's not as bad as it is in some other new SUVs. Just like in the old RAV4, materials are pretty good for a mid-grade trim level, though we will say that in both models on the top trim levels, they do fall short against other SUVs. As for the back seat of the old RAV4, just like these front seats, the back, it could use a little bit more cushioning, but it's comfortable enough, and at least it has a very nice natural level of recline. I'm just under 6 feet tall. This seat is set up where I like to drive, and as you can see, decent amount of legroom, decent amount of headroom, though we should note that other compact SUVs like the Honda CR-V, like the Hyundai Tucson Hybrid, they're gonna offer you a lot more room in the back. One thing to note, if you're getting a base model of the older RAV4, you're not going to get air vents and you're not going to get USB charging ports, and those are two things that we sort of consider non-negotiables for a family car these days. And if you're trying to load a car seat back here, especially a rear-facing one, it could be a bit of a struggle. The rear doors, they don't open super wide, and this space, again, it's smaller than you're going to find in other compact SUVs, so you probably have to scoot this seat up to fit it behind them. But we do like in the old RAV4 that the latch anchors, the lower ones, they are easier to access. And the new RAV4, it doesn't really solve that problem. Remember we mentioned before that the wheelbase of these two is the exact same. That's the space between the front wheels and the rear wheels. So the legroom is more or less the same. You're gonna have to move this seat up to fit a rear facing car seat. The other problem is those lower latch anchors, they're a bit tucked in more, so it's harder to install as well. There is a touch more headroom here, so it feels a bit more open, and your rear seat passengers are going to appreciate that, but the same caveats about the seats apply, not as comfortable as they are in competitors. Now, if you get a base model of the new RAV4, you are at least going to get air vents, but not USB ports. Given their dimensional similarities, you won't be surprised to know that the cargo areas of these two RAV4s are basically identical when it comes to size. Less than a cubic foot separates them with the seats up or the seats down. Now, we do wish that both of them had more features in the back. There are no handles to drop the seats in the back, and all you're really getting is a 12-volt port, so room to improve for Toyota there. But the advantage that the new RAV4 has over the old one is when it comes to towing, because with the hybrid powertrain and all-wheel drive, this one can tow up to 3,500 pounds, and that's double of what you'll get out of the old RAV4. The RAV4 makes a really good first impression. A mass market crossover like this, it doesn't need to have razor sharp steering or perfect body control to be good to drive. What you really want is something that's just easy to hop into and drive day to day, that it's quiet and comfortable, and in that way, the RAV4, it really nails the assignment. The ride isn't crazy plush, but it does absorb bumps really well. In this cabin, it stays pretty quiet for the most part. Unless you're asking for a lot out of that engine, then you're gonna get a bunch of noise in the cabin that's not particularly pleasant. Some hybrids can struggle with uneven brake feel because these vehicles, they're trying to blend together two different braking systems. The regenerative one and then the old school regular friction brakes. But here in the Toyota, there are no such issues. They've really nailed that blend to the point where it's seamless to the driver, and this is a very easy vehicle to stop smoothly, and that's not something that we can say about all hybrids. Toyota also updated the RAV4's hybrid powertrain for 2026, so you're getting a little bit more power, and this thing, it feels really responsive around town to throttle inputs with its electric motor helping out. And if you're going to get on the highway or pass someone, there's still plenty of grunt for that. And on top of that, even with the big wheels and tires and all-wheel drive, you're still going to get excellent fuel economy, the best among all of its competitors. The RAV4 is also going to come with plenty of standard driver aids, from adaptive cruise control to blind spot monitors and that integrated dash cam that we mentioned earlier. Now, we like the lane centering system on this vehicle. It's better than it was in previous Toyotas, so you can go down the highway without bouncing between the lane markers, and it will even change lanes for you now. So the RAV4, it might not be the most fun vehicle to drive, but it doesn't need to be. Like I said before, this is just basically Hakuna Matata. It's stress-free transportation that you'd be totally happy to live with day to day. Driving the previous generation of the RAV4, it feels a lot like the new RAV4, just maybe with a touch less refinement all around. I think the new RAV4 has slightly better steering and especially a slightly better tuned brake pedal. It's a bit smoother when you're stopping, but otherwise, they're just pretty close to each other, and both are gonna feel good day to day. There is one advantage though that I'd give to this old RAV4, and that would be natural visibility. Now, the camera systems on the higher trims of the new RAV4 are clearly better than the old ones, but when I'm driving around day to day, these side mirrors, they're a much better shape. In the new RAV4, they're a bit too vertical and a bit too skinny, but these are excellent, and you can see out of this vehicle in all directions really easily. The thing though that you're going to give up with the older RAV4 is a little bit of fuel economy, but even this one, it's still going to be better than all of its competitors. Given that these two vehicles have sort of the same mission, it's not that surprising that they drive very similarly. Yes, the new one's a touch better, but this old one, we think it's great for most people. Before we get into value and share our verdict, if you've been enjoying our videos and find them helpful, the best way to help us make more of them is a like and subscribe. And if you have any questions about either of these RAV4s or an idea of which new versus used comparison we should do next, let us know in the comments below. We do read them all. The price equation between the new RAV4 and the old one is going to be very interesting, mainly because the price gap between these two vehicles is not going to be as big as you might think. Now, if you're thinking about picking up a pre-owned RAV4, we would really recommend that you go 2023 or newer because you're going to get that vastly improved technology package. And if you do that, according to the Edmunds data, those vehicles still sell for an average of $34,000. Now, because these RAV4s are holding their value like crazy, it makes choosing between used and new a bit more complicated than it would normally. Now, your unique situation may vary, but generally speaking, on used car loans, your interest rate is going to be between 1 and 3 percentage points higher on average, according to Edmunds data. Plus, a used RAV4 will be out of warranty sooner, and it's not likely that you'll be able to take advantage of the 2 free years of complimentary maintenance like you would on a new one. And the new RAV4 also enjoys a very slight advantage in fuel economy. It'll save you about $100 or so a year on gas, although if gas prices keep going up, that might get even higher. Now it's time to check out the individual category scores that make up the Edmunds rating. The new RAV4 sees improvements almost across the board. The old car still enjoys an advantage in comfort since it's easier to install a child seat, and we like the control scheme a bit more, but otherwise, the new RAV4 wipes the floor with its predecessor. At 7.0 out of 10, the old RAV4 was a good SUV with great fuel economy and an easygoing drive, but its aging tech and smallish interior gave rivals an edge. That score would have placed it 10th out of 18 in our current ratings of compact hybrid SUVs. But Toyota improved the things that were lacking in the old car without sacrificing much of what made it good. Exceptional competitors offer more space and better ride quality, but there are only 2 of those because at 8.1 out of 10, it's currently our number 3 pick. Now, normally when considering a used car versus a new car, it's a bit of a choice between a lower price but an inferior vehicle or a better vehicle with the latest features and a much higher price tag. But in the case of the RAV4, because it holds its value so well, the price difference between these two is so negligible that it makes a lot of sense to just get the newer RAV4, which is better in pretty much every way. We think you'll like it a lot. Thanks for watching.